Story: The Underground Path. Once upon a time, in a small village on the edge of a dense forest, there was an ancient house built from large stones covered with green moss. The villagers all knew about the house, but no one dared to go near it. They said that on full moon nights, the light from the windows of the house emitted strange rays of light, as if someone was still living there, even though the house had been abandoned for many years. During a business trip, Duk, a young man from the city, decided to return to his hometown to visit his deceased grandmother. The familiar village was no longer the same as before. Many houses had been abandoned, but the ancient house still stood there. Just hearing stories about the house, Duk felt curious, and he decided to go there once to find out. One late afternoon, Duk followed the path leading into the forest, heading towards the old house. The closer he got, the more he felt the atmosphere around him become gloomy and quiet. The house in front of him still stood silently, with closed doors and windows, the walls covered in dust. However, there was one strange thing: the air around the house was always cold even in the middle of the hot summer. As Duk stood in front of the main door, he felt a slight vibration. There was something that made him unable to take his eyes off this house, as if there was an invisible force inviting him inside. He reached out to grab the doorknob, but before he opened it, a soft voice whispered in the wind, "Don't come in, if you don't want to lose your soul." Startled, Duk pulled his hand back, but his curiosity made him unable to stop. He took a deep breath, then forcefully opened the door and stepped in. Inside the house was a cold and dark space. The lime walls had turned yellow, the wooden chairs were hollowed out by termites, and the windows were broken. Everything seemed to have been abandoned for a long time, but there was one thing that made Duk feel uneasy. Even though there was no one, he felt like someone was watching him. Passing through the dark hallway, Duk entered a large room, where in the middle of the room was an ancient wooden table. On the table was a plain wooden box, nothing special but exuding a strange attraction. Duk could not resist. He approached and opened the box. When the lid was opened, a cold air blew out, causing him to jump back in surprise. Inside the box was a black iron key, looking very old and rusty. Duk picked up the key, and immediately, a heavy feeling enveloped him. A soft voice rang out from the space, as if coming from the wall itself, "You have touched the key. Now you cannot go back." Duk turned around, intending to leave the room, but suddenly, the room began to change. The paintings on the walls suddenly came to life, as if eyes were following his every move. The space around him distorted, and a faint light from somewhere shone on the key in his hand, making it glow strangely. The voice rang out again, this time louder and clearer, "This key opens the door underground. You won't be able to get out without opening it." Dek's legs felt paralyzed. He felt an invisible force pulling him towards the room behind. Just as the voice had just said, a large wooden door opened, leading down a dark staircase. Duk, although filled with fear, was curious about the mysteries in the ancient house that made him walk. With each step down, he felt the air getting colder, as if he was going deeper into a place that did not belong to humans. The stairs led down to a large underground room, with cracked walls and huge boulders. In the middle of the room, there was a stone table, and on it was a small stone coffin, carved very delicately. Duk did not understand why he had come here, but he knew he could not go back. He approached the coffin, and when he opened the lid, a cold air blew past, almost making him collapse. Inside the coffin was the body of a man, rotten but still retaining its original shape. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the darkness, "You have awakened this soul." Before he could understand what was happening, Duk felt a strong suction from the coffin, pulling him towards it. He tried to struggle, but his body could not move. Shadows began to appear around him, and giggles echoed from the darkness. The voice rang out again, this time filled with anger, "You cannot escape this curse. You have opened this door, and now, you will become a part of this place." In that moment, Duk felt everything around him disappear. When he woke up, he found himself in a strange room. Everything around him was dim and dark. He could not escape, could not see the exit, and felt as if he had been trapped forever in that house. With every step in the house, Duc could not escape the curse of the key and the door on the ground. The shadowy figures were always following him, and when he looked in the mirror, he saw that he had become a